I never thought I'd live to see my own neighbor's house go dark because the sheriff pulled her power meter out in front of the whole community, but that's exactly what happened. The same woman who fined people for leaving a trash can out too long was stealing my electricity, cutting into my land, wiring her palace of floodlights right into my service line. And when the truth finally came out, it wasn't just her lights that went off, it was her whole kingdom collapsing. It started one evening, just before dusk. The sky was turning that bruised purple over the hills when the lamps in my living room gave a strange shudder. Not the fridge kicking on, not the well pump, just wrong. 30 years on this ranch, I know every hum and rattle of this place. That flicker was different. Lena came to the doorway with that look, no words, just the same thought running through both our heads. Something's not right. I grabbed my flashlight, pulled on my boots, and went looking. At the edge of my land, 10 feet from the fence, I found it. Fresh dirt, a sloppy scar cutting toward the common ground and then straight into Karen Lewis's yard. Karen, the HOA president, queen of citations. Ruler of paint chips and lawn measurements, she dug right into my line. My gut turned cold. I didn't need to see the feathers to know the coyote had been at the hen house. I locked down my main breaker, filmed every step, called the power company and the sheriff. It felt strange, sitting in my own dark kitchen with Lena's phone light propped up documenting every lock and timestamp like a crime scene. But I knew this wasn't some neighborly dispute to hash out over coffee. This was theft, and it was arrogant. She thought she was untouchable. She thought I was too quiet, too old to fight. She thought wrong. 2 days later, proof arrived in the ugliest envelope I'd ever seen, bright pink with the HOA logo slapped across it. Inside, a notice of violation. According to Karen, I was guilty of interfering with community utility infrastructure. A $500 fine due in 7 days. And on top of that, a brand new emergency bylaw declaring my home a utility support hub required to provide power to others during grid instability. Grid instability she caused, of course. It was like being robbed at gunpoint, then handed the bill for the bullets. I laughed once, a short, bitter sound, then folded the paper and put it in my pocket. Karen was no longer hiding, she was doubling down. That afternoon, she showed up at my door in her black SUV, dragging 2 nervous board members behind her like bodyguards. Lena had the camera rolling from behind a stack of books. Karen's smile was painted on her voice, syrupy. "Ben, we came to discuss the violations." I stood in the doorway, blocking her path. "There are no violations," I said. "Just a crime, the one you're committing." Her face twitched, but she snapped back, talking about sharing power for the good of the community. I kept my voice low and even. "Show me the law that says I have to let you steal from me." Her smile melted. The finger came out, jabbing at my chest. "You will remove those locks. You will pay those fines. And if you don't, I'll put a lien on your property so fast your head will spin." I looked her straight in the eye. Crimes don't get settled by HOA bylaws. Theft is for the sheriff, not your board. Now get off my porch. And I shut the door in her face. Not slammed, just closed, solid final. That night, though, doubt crept in. Sitting in the dark with only the hum of the generator, I felt old and small. What if she was right? What if fighting her meant endless court battles, drained accounts, maybe even losing the ranch? Lena and I built with our own hands. I thought about giving up, about paying the fine and swallowing my pride just to keep the peace. Lena set a cup of tea in front of me, her voice steady. "Ben, you've always said the law is a tool, not a threat. Use it." She was right. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't weak. I was in the right, and Karen had finally gone too far. The next morning, Dave from the power company showed up in his orange vest. He crouched by the trench, took pictures, shook his head. "Textbook illegal tap," he said. Then he installed a digital monitor inside my meter box. "This will catch every draw on your line second by second. Leave your breaker off run on the generator. If she pulls anything, we'll see it." That little blinking green light became my ally. Hours later, Deputy Miller pulled into the driveway. He took my statement-bagged Karen's pink violation letter as evidence and leaned close. "She's the HOA president, right? Monthly meetings." I nodded. Good, he said. We'll schedule a public inspection during the next meeting, a community safety check. She'll have to stand there and smile while we open your panel in front of everyone. If the monitor logs a theft, we'll follow it straight into her yard. It was brilliant. Use her own emergency decree to stage her downfall. For a few days, nothing happened. Then, at 2 a.m, my phone buzzed. The trail cam by the meter caught motion. Lena and I huddled over the screen, watching a shaky black-and-white image of Frank the handyman Karen used for every odd job trying to cut the seal off my meter. He had a fake seal ready to slap on, thought he could erase the evidence. But the moment he clipped that wire, Dave's monitor lit up like a siren, sending an alert straight to the utility. We got the whole thing on video. Frank panicked, dropped the counterfeit seal, and bolted into the night. That was the nail in the coffin. We weren't dealing with petty HOA bullying anymore. This was felony tampering. The day of the inspection, my yard was packed. Neighbors filled the driveway folks who'd been fined for bird feeders for chalk drawings for the wrong shade of paint. They were tired, angry, and ready. Karen strutted in at 5 sharp wearing a blazing red power suit like she was stepping onto a stage. She mistook the crowd for her audience, smiling, waving. Thank you all for coming to support this important safety initiative. I stood silent, waiting. The county inspector asked my permission to open the service panel. You have it, I said loud enough for everyone to hear. Karen's grin widened. She thought he'd find my locks, call me out. Instead, he unscrewed the cover and revealed the ugly truth: 2 thick black cables clamped to my service lugs, bypassing everything burrowing into the dirt toward her property. A parasite plain as day. The crowd gasped. The inspector's voice was steady but heavy. This is a highly dangerous illegal tap. It violates county code state law and basic common sense. It's theft. Dave confirmed the monitor readings power drawn while my breaker was off tamper alerts at 2:13 a.m. yesterday. The deputy held up a warrant signed by a judge to trace the line. The camera scope showed the wires tunneling under the fence into Karen's flower beds. The inspector turned to Dave. For safety, disconnect the terminating property immediately. Deputy Miller pulled the external switch at Karen's meter. Her house went black. Dave twisted the meter free, sealed the socket with a bright red tag. The queen had lost her crown. Right there in broad daylight. Karen broke. She shrieked, "You can't." "I'm the HOA president." The inspector didn't even flinch. "Ma'am, right now, you're a felony suspect. Your title doesn't matter." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, relief, disbelief, maybe even joy. Lena stepped forward, flipped open a clipboard on the tailgate of our truck. At the top, petition to recall HOA President Karen Lewis. She clicked a pen. The law will handle the crime. But this community decides its own leadership. Mrs. Porter, the woman Karen once fined for a white door, stepped up first. Her shaky signature lit a fuse. One by one the line grew. Mike the accountant, the young parents, the elderly couple. Pens scratched. Names filled the page. Karen stood frozen, watching her power vanish line by line. In 15 minutes, more than half the neighborhood had signed. By our own bylaws, that was enough. She was out. I didn't cheer. I didn't smile. I just watched her pale face as she stumbled back to her SUV, her house dark behind her, her board members already slinking away from her shadow. In the span of one afternoon, she'd lost her lights, her allies, her authority. And all I'd done was stand steady, gather the facts, and let the law do its work. She thought my silence meant weakness. She thought wrong. Justice doesn't need to be loud, it just needs to be steady.